Hello everyone and welcome to Study IQ English. I am Joycey Joy. In this video, we will be discussing about types of subsidies, different types of subsidies. So first we will see what is a subsidy, then we will come to different types of subsidies. Subsidy means a grant. Now what is the meaning of a grant? A grant means that a money which has been given which need not be returned. That is, there is no repayment obligation in case of a grant. So there is no repayment obligation or it has not to be returned. This grant may be in the form of either cash or kind and is generally given to promote an economic policy or a social policy. It can be in the form of cash. If it is in the form of cash, it is called as cash subsidy. Or it can be in the form of kind, that is in-kind subsidy, in the form of material. So cash or kind, and it is generally given to promote an economic policy or a social policy. So either to promote an economic policy of a government or a social policy of the government. Now, subsidies can be either direct subsidies or indirect subsidies. Direct subsidies are which are given directly to the beneficiaries, and indirect subsidies reach the beneficiaries indirectly. So direct subsidies reach the beneficiaries directly. That is direct subsidy. And indirect subsidy reach indirectly through a third person. Through a third person or another entity. Example of direct subsidies: cash, grants, interest-free loans. All these are examples of direct subsidy. And examples of indirect subsidies: tax breaks, premium free insurance, low interest loans, depreciation write-offs, rent rebates. All these are examples of indirect subsidy. So tax breaks, premium free insurance, low interest loans, depreciation write-off, rent rebate, all these are examples of indirect subsidy. Next, we are coming to 6 primary categories of subsidies, different types of subsidies. First one is export subsidies, that is subsidies given on exports. Second one is subsidies contingent upon the use of domestic over imported goods, that is in order to promote the use of domestic goods over imported goods. What is the problem with regard to imported goods? They are cheaper as compared to domestic goods. They are cheaper. Now when the prices are low, cheaper means the prices are low. When the prices are low, the demand will be high for the imported goods. This can affect the demand of the domestic goods. Demand of domestic goods can be affected. So subsidies given in order to promote domestic goods. Third is industrial promotion subsidies, to promote certain industries. Fourth is structural adjustment subsidies, that is if there are structural deficiencies in an economy, to adjust for these deficiencies or to compensate for the deficiencies. Compensate for structural deficiencies. Next is regional development subsidies, that is for the development of a particular region. Research and development subsidies, R&D, for promoting research and development. By beneficiary, there are 2 primary categories, that is by beneficiary or from the perspective of beneficiary, there are 2 primary categories. One is subsidies that are not limited to specific business or industries, that is subsidies that are not limited or which are not specific. Second is subsidies those are limited to specific businesses and industries, that is specific subsidies and non-specific subsidies. Specific subsidies and non-specific subsidies. Subsidies can also be divided into broad and narrow subsidy, that is broad which covers a broader group, and narrow subsidies. The most common forms of subsidies are those to the producer or to the consumer. So 2 stakeholders who are generally or normally the beneficiaries of subsidies, it can be either the producer or the consumer. The producer or production subsidies ensure producers are better off by supplying market price support, direct support or payments to the factors of production. Why production subsidies are given? In order to promote the production of something. And why is consumption subsidies given? In order to promote the consumption of certain goods. So production subsidies or Product producer subsidies, product subsidies, these are given in order to promote the production of certain goods. Now, consumer or consumption subsidies usually reduce the price of goods and services to the consumer. So, this makes the price cheaper. Price cheaper, and therefore what will happen when the prices are cheaper? This will attract more consumers. There will be increase in demand. Subsidies are commonly used by governments to promote general welfare. To promote welfare like housing, education, subsistence, etc. However, they can also be used as tools of political and corporate cronyism or to erect barriers to trade. So they can also be used as political tools or corporate tools, but generally they are used to promote welfare. Subsidies are a tool of promoting welfare of the government. Now next is estimation of subsidy on public goods, merit goods and non-merit classification. We will see what are public goods, what are merit goods and what are non-merit goods. Public good is a good that individuals cannot be effectively excluded from the use and where use by one individual does not reduce the availability to others. So this is the definition of public goods, and there are two features that distinguishes a public good from other goods. One is that nobody can be excluded from consuming such goods. That is, it should be available for everyone. Second one is that if one person consumes a public good, it will not reduce the availability for another person. That is the two things. Examples of public goods include fresh air, national defense, flood control system, public transport, street lighting, etc. See, these two characters rightly match for these examples. Now, if you take national defense as an example, nobody can be excluded from the services of national defense. And also, if a person is availing those services, it doesn't mean that it is less available for another person. So, these are the two characters. Since these services are available to all, they are normally characterized by non-rivalry and non-excludability in consumption. So, these are the two characters. One is that they are non-rival. They do not create a competition. Second one is non-exclusability. That means it is available for everyone. Since these services are available to all citizens, they do not exclude anyone. Because it's universally available to everyone. That's why they do not exclude anyone. Thus, such goods cannot be priced and hence are not included in the calculation of subsidies. That's why public goods does not count as subsidies. Why? Because it's not available to a specific group or they cannot be priced. There is no price for all these public goods. So that's why they cannot be considered as a subsidy. Next is merit goods. Those goods whose consumption leads to positive externalities. That is, merit goods by definition means that if anybody consumes a merit good, it leads to positive externalities, positive outcome. This implies that when a merit good is consumed, the public benefit is greater than the private benefit. That is, the benefit at large. Public benefit is the benefit in general or at large. For example, vaccination. Vaccination is a merit good. It benefits the public in large. Similarly, other merit goods are environmental protection, minimal level of education for all, etc. The social benefit resulting from these goods or services much greater than the sum of private benefits to individual consumers. This is because these goods contain certain elements of externality beneficial to the society as a whole. This is because it creates a positive externality. Other examples of merit goods are roads and bridges, flood control, research pertaining to agriculture, space, atomic energy, etc. The availability of benefits in the form of externality justifies the subsidies on these goods. So, availability of benefits in the form of externality. These benefits in the form of externality justifies the subsidies on these goods. Next is non-merit goods. Non-merit goods are those goods whose consumption leads to negative externality. Now see, in case of merit goods, we have seen that it leads to positive externality. In case of non-merit goods, it leads to negative externality. In consumption of such goods, the benefit of subsidies provided on such goods accrues to individual consumers. In case of non-merit goods, the cost of providing the commodity or service to the society is higher than the price fixed for providing it to the consumer. It leads to negative externalities. Now see, how can you define a negative externality? It creates a negative overall outcome. Now in case of a non-merit good, cost of providing the service or that commodity, that non-merit good, to the society is higher than the price fixed. Now see, for example, you buy something which is degradable, which can cause a destruction to the environment. Suppose the price of that commodity is 30,000 rupees, but in terms of ecological degradation or environmental degradation, the price is much more than the price, this 30,000 rupees. That is a non-merit good. Now, these subsidies result in transfer of benefits to individual consumer in a number of ways. So, these are the different types. Cash subsidies, that is in the form of cash. Interest subsidies or credit subsidies, that is lesser rates of interest or subsidized rates of interest, concessional rates of interest. Then tax subsidies, which means that tax exemptions or lesser rates of tax, etc. In-kind subsidies, that is in the form of material. Then next is procurement subsidy, purchase of food grains at an assured price. Like for example, MSP, procurement price, all these are examples of procurement subsidy. Next is regulatory subsidies. Fixation of prices of goods produced by the public sector at less than the cost with a view to providing inputs to industry or helping certain other categories of consumers. Now next, coming to budgetary subsidies. Subsidies which are provided in the budget are budgetary subsidies. So subsidies which are provided in the budget. Budget is the annual financial statement of the government. It is also the record of or the account of the expenditure and the revenue of the government. It is the annual financial statement. The estimation of budgetary subsidies are computed as excess of the cost of providing a service over the recoveries from the service. These costs are taken as the sum of the following: revenue expenditure on the concerned service, annual depreciation on cumulative capital expenditure for the creation of physical assets in the service, interest cost of cumulative capital expenditure, equity investment in public enterprises, and loans given for the service concerned, including those to public enterprises. So these are the budgetary subsidies. So that's it about different kinds of subsidies. I'll meet you again with another topic. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you all the very best.